We are on the third part of certain revenue, which is focused planning. So far we've talked about clarity of vision and recruiter GPS, and now we're going to talk about planning. So Mike, what are some of the most common reasons why plans fail?
They're boring. The reasons plans fail is they're boring and people don't understand the level of importance of them. Number one. Number two, they're done horribly for the most part. And I'm a recovering crappy planner, especially in recruiting. The outcome that you want and the result that you want is so distant from the activity that you would plan for. Meaning, if you made a marketing call today or a recruiting call today and found a candidate to go on an interview, that's not money in your bank account for probably 90 days. So there's such a lag between the actual activity we plan for and the actual outcome of the reward of not only making the placement, but then getting the check, that our profession, more than many, provides ample opportunities for daily procrastination without any immediate negative consequences. So that for the most part, people don't know how to plan. I think people that are really, really good at recruiting it's a contact sport. So the actual kind of mapping it all out is boring. It's just let me talk to people. Just let me take a job order. Let me find the candidate. Let me arrange the interview. Let me close the deal. Versus the key to having this unpredictable income is, just as we focused on in the other videos, is what's the specific outcome you're looking for, reverse engineering the number, and then exactly, specifically, and precisely, what the activity needs to be for the week.
If you don't have a habit already of planning, how does one develop that habit?
One develops the habit of planning by going back to the first section that we talked about, which is creating a clear vision. What is it that you wanted for yourself, that you created an emotional connection to, both personally and professionally? What did you want in your life? How is what you're doing as a recruiter tying into that? What is it? What parts of, I hear a lot of people, they want financial freedom, yet they haven't defined what that looks like. But it's knowing what those components are from the vision, and then saying, a lot of times you're looking at a vision 3 and 5 years out, but bringing it down to, okay, for that to happen 3 years from now, what has to happen? We're going to go into this a year from now, 3 months from now, next month, next week. In the absence of a vision, a plan is somewhat random.
So what are those components that you need to have a successful daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly plan?
So to do that, you really have to master chapters 1 and 2, which is define the vision and then define the metrics for that vision. And then the components are, one, it's an annual plan. So an annual plan includes 1-year goals. And a mentor of mine, Dan Sullivan, asked this question: what has to be true for you both personally and professionally 12 months from now, or for 12 months, your annual plan? What has to be true for you both personally and professionally 12 months from now for you to be really happy with your progress? So you answer that question. So then I would be having in that, the answer to that question, your role, your revenue, the types of clients you had, the type of personal life you had. And then you use Recruiter GPS to define that on an annual basis. For me, as an individual, to bill $300,000, that's going to be a placement a month at $25,000. That's at an 8-to-1 interview to placement ratio. That means I have to arrange 8 interviews a month, or 96 over the course of the year. Okay, then it's going down to the next component is, when you look at that, you identify the gaps. Based on where I want to be 12 months from now, where am I, where are we at right now? And another line Dan Sullivan has is, all progress starts with telling the truth. Not, well, I would have been better off if those 2 deals didn't blow up, if that company didn't, freeze those positions. No. What are the gaps between where you're at and where you want to be? And I would be looking at all 12 areas of the optimizer model that are in that we're going to be covering, and in each area define the gaps. So the second component is identifying the gaps, and then from that you're going to find 2 or 3, if not more, projects that you can work on straight away to have an impact. Then you go down to the 90-day level. So we're a year, define the outcome, define the gaps, take it down to a 90-day projects. Once you've identified the gaps, those are the seeds of your 90-day project. So you might say, well, we're not tracking metrics. And the way to define a project successfully is define the specific outcome. So you can't just say, oh, we're going to track metrics this quarter. No. At the end of 90 days, we will have tracked all the key performance indicators, KPIs. And at the end of 90 days, we will know our marketing presentation to job order ratio, our recruit presentation to interview, first-time interview ratio, and we'll be able to forecast revenue 90 days out. So that's kind of the outcome from the project. The actions, this is an example in that project, would be step 1, track all KPIs daily. Step 2, set up metrics tracking software or a portal, and you can get that. We have one at the Recruiter U. Step 3, establish policy for entering the numbers weekly. You need a policy and a protocol, especially if you have a team. How do they track it? When do they input it? What's the deadline? And what's the process on that? And then step 4 is review team numbers weekly and coach on gaps. So that would be like a small project, implementing metrics. 1, you have a specific outcome you want, which means we're going to be able to forecast revenue. We'll be able to do that within 90 days. And for us to do that, here are the very specific actions. Each one of these is measurable. And then the next component then logically is a monthly plan. So both personally and professionally, what do I want to accomplish for the month? Free time, doing what? What is our plan for family, for my health? For the month, how many first-time interviews do I need as an individual, or do we need as a company? Which one of those quarterly projects we just talked about, what slice of that will we start, finish over the next month? And then you outline the projects or the slices of the projects you said need to be done in the quarter. What part of that specifically would be done by the end of the month? And then you go down to, lastly, you go down to weekly. And everything revolves, we're in the section about certain revenue. Everything revolves in recruiting around the first-time interview. So going back to that example of an individual that wants $300,000 a year that needs 2 interviews a week, where are my 2 interviews coming from this week? That's the question. And you might go, well, geez, I don't really have any searches to work on. That means my plan really has to be heavy around marketing this week. Or you might have a bunch of searches. And then where are my first-time interviews coming from this week? Prioritizing the quality of the searches. So you're going to lean heavily on the recruiting, more heavily on the recruiting than on the marketing side. And then it's what specific number in each one of those categories do I need? And when am I going to do it during the day? Those are all the components that when you add them all up will equal that 12-month outcome and is 33% of your 3-year vision.
Once you've created this plan, we know that life happens. You might be wildly successful and have a bunch of job orders that you need to fill. You might have a personal issue that comes up. How does one course correct when life happens?
Here's what I promise you. When you make a bold commitment to yourself, something in your life is going to poke at you for its attention. And I've heard this from other mentors, and I didn't believe it was true. But you could be making a bold commitment to go to another level, and your furnace blows up, but you need a new furnace, and that's going to cost $5,000 or $10,000 installed, and you're going to need this, and then you're going to want to take your eye off of it. The question is, how do I take care of this thing in my personal situation and maintain my commitment to what I want for myself? And it's showing yourself over time that you can follow through. No one's going to be 100% every day. I always advocate that if you have a bad day, don't go into day 2 saying I'm going to make up for the bad day, and I'm going to, so if I didn't do any activity on Monday, so I'll do 2x the activity on Tuesday to make up for it. No, just have a 100% day on Tuesday. Just show yourself you can have a 100% day on Tuesday, then have a 100% day on Wednesday. So when you get off track and you have a bad day, and you will, get back on track the next day.
Fantastic advice. So I have a bonus question.
I'm not ready for this. Maybe I can't answer it. Go ahead.
I think you can. A lot of people, when they're planning, especially when it comes down to making revenue targets, they want to be realistic. What would you say to somebody who says, but I want to make sure it's realistic?
The word realistic in Mike Gianta's personal dictionary is pessimistic. So when you look in the definition of my version of Webster's, and if you looked up realistic, it would be pessimistic. So let's just talk about reality for a minute. So you're a brand new recruiter, you've never built a dime, and you have no idea what you're doing, and you're going to do $1 million first year. Realistic goal, unrealistic time frame. I don't really ever think there's such thing as an unrealistic goal. I think there's unrealistic timeframes. And sometimes in integrity, you won't know what a realistic time frame is until you go out and execute to it. And there's no dishonor in that. That's a learning experience. If in your heart you said, I approach it the hard, I did my very best, and I came up with X minus Y of production. Well, maybe that's quote unquote the realistic level, but that's still for me a cop out. Even even this year, we see people that are new in the business, or people that are struggling, or people that are in a real slump. Talk to 15 people a day. Not email exchanges, not LinkedIn exchanges, not text exchanges, 15 conversations a day. And most people would say that's unrealistic. When you plan the right way for it, using kind of the components, and maybe are you outsourcing some research? You make an unrealistic plan realistic. And then lastly, the question then, instead of using the word realistic, what has to be true for me to have this outcome? Is the question to ask yourself if you're on that bubble of unrealistic. Great question, by the way.
Thanks.
Just like slowly I turned step by step. I hate that word. It's an unrealistic question to ask about reality.
Excellent. So do you have any final thoughts on focused planning and how to be successful at it?
To do anything, and I'm there for the distracted recruiter. I get it. When I was able, and I struggled a lot when I opened, when I was able to finally get that under control, I made commitments to myself for the number of people I was going to talk to every day, and for the number of job orders I was going to take, and the number of interviews I needed to hit my financial goals, just at a desk level, not even building my office. And when I got into that rhythm, because if you know what that goal is, then you say, okay, well, I need to talk to X amount of people. Then you say, okay, I need to plan. Now I get down to daily planning. I need to have a list ready. Do I have an outsourced researcher? Once you say, these are the numbers I hit, your deficits will become very apparent. And then you can either choose to tackle them yourself, or outsource some of them to a professional that's good at research and things like that. So it comes down to choosing not to plan when you don't have what you want, is then choosing to continue to not have what you want.
Great. So can you just sum up real quick? Certain revenue, 3 parts, clarity of vision, recruiter GPS, and focused planning.
So certain revenues going from roller coaster income to predictable revenue. And it's getting off that roller coaster ride of, oh, when's the next deal happening? And the components of that are knowing exactly specifically what you want 1 year out, 3 years out, 5 years out. Maybe not precisely what you want, but a big picture of the types of clients you want to work with, the type of company you want to have, the role you want to play in that company, what that income needs to be. Once you're clear on that and the impact it's going to have on your life, the way you get there, if it's especially on the revenue side, is knowing what the numerical targets need to be. So it's getting, once you're clear on desire, then it's knowing what those numbers are. Now you're in an algebra equation. $1 million office might be 7 interviews a week as a company at an average fee of $20,000 to $25,000. Okay, well, how do we get that? Then it's putting the planning process in place. So if you have a vision, if you know what the KPIs are, and you have a plan for it, you now have certain revenue as long as you execute to those targets based on what you wanted for yourself.
And I love that the key is as long as you execute on those targets.
Correct.
Thanks so much.
All right, stay tuned we'll jump into, the next one is how to be a pursued partner.
Yes.
How to get the best clients and change your client avatar. That will be coming up in the next video. See you then.